Good morning and welcome back to Focus On. Today, we're diving into a topic that, while seemingly simple, often leads to some surprisingly complex and, at times, comical communication challenges: ordering food or coffee. You know, that everyday interaction that can sometimes feel like navigating a linguistic minefield. We've all been there, haven't we? Anticipating that perfect meal or the morning pick-me-up, only to find a disconnect somewhere along the line. It's a universal experience, and it's something we really don't think about until it goes a little bit sideways. Joining me today to explore this intriguing aspect of daily life is a keen observer of human interaction and communication, someone who's probably seen it all, from the sublime to the utterly confusing. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's truly fascinating when you start to break down something as seemingly mundane as ordering a coffee or a meal. You walk in, you state your request, and yet there's so much room for misinterpretation. I mean, think about the sheer number of variables. Are we talking about a simple black coffee or a double-shot, venti, extra-hot, sugar-free vanilla oat milk latte with light foam and a sprinkle of cinnamon? Each of those modifiers is a potential point of failure. And it's not just the customer's end, it's also the person taking the order, trying to accurately capture every detail amidst a bustling environment, often with background noise and a queue of other eager customers. It's a dance, really, and sometimes someone steps on a toe.
That's a fantastic analogy, a dance where someone steps on a toe. So let's break that down a little. When we talk about coffee specifically, what are some of the most common pitfalls you've observed? Because, as you said, it's rarely just a coffee anymore. The vocabulary has exploded, and it feels like you need a secret decoder ring sometimes just to order your regular.
Absolutely. The coffee world has become incredibly specialized. For starters, there's the size dilemma. Is it a small, medium, large, or a tall, grande venti, or even piccolo? And then you get into the type of milk. Dairy, oat, almond, soy, coconut, each with its own texture and potential for different reactions when heated. Then you layer on the temperature: extra hot, lukewarm, iced, sweeteners, sugar-free syrup, 1 pump, 2 pumps, and don't forget the extra foam, no foam, light foam requests. It's a rapid-fire sequence of very specific instructions. If the barista mishears just one word, oat for almond or extra hot for regular, the whole experience is altered. And sometimes you're just not quite clear, or you mumble, or you assume they know exactly what my usual means. It's a perfect storm for miscommunication, honestly.
You've highlighted the complexity perfectly there. It's not just about the words, but the speed, the environment, and even the assumptions we bring to the interaction. Now, let's shift gears a little to meals. Ordering food, especially in a restaurant, adds another layer of intricacy, particularly when you factor in dietary restrictions or allergies. This isn't just a preference anymore. It can be a health concern. What are the unique challenges here?
Oh, meal orders introduce an entirely new dimension of potential issues. When you're dealing with allergies, say nuts, gluten, or shellfish, precision is paramount. A simple misunderstanding can have serious health consequences. Customers need to be incredibly clear, and staff need to be diligent in relaying that information to the kitchen. But sometimes menu descriptions themselves are vague. What exactly constitutes seasonal vegetables? Are those croutons on the salad gluten-free? Is the dressing made with nuts? Sometimes you ask, and the server might not know offhand, leading to a trip back to the kitchen, which slows things down and creates potential for further miscommunication. Then there are modifications. Can I swap the fries for a side salad? Hold the onions. Extra sauce on the side. Each of these requires the server to correctly input or remember complex instructions, often under pressure, which is frankly a lot to ask sometimes.
It really underscores the human element in all of this, doesn't it? The pressure on both sides. And let's not forget the added layer when language barriers come into play, or even just regional differences in terminology. What's a soda in one place might be pop in another, or even fizzy drink. How significant are these cultural and linguistic nuances in contributing to ordering mishaps?
They're huge, absolutely massive. Imagine being in a foreign country, trying to navigate a menu in a language you're not fluent in, or even just a dialect with different culinary terms. Even within English-speaking countries, there are stark differences. For example, biscuits in the UK are what Americans call cookies, while biscuits in the US are more akin to a scone. This leads to wildly different expectations. And then there's the cultural context of service itself. In some cultures, it might be considered rude to extensively question a menu item or to make multiple modifications. In others, it's perfectly normal. These unspoken rules and linguistic variations add immense complexity to an already intricate exchange. It makes you realize how much unspoken context we rely on in our daily interactions.
That's a brilliant point about the unspoken context. So, given all these potential pitfalls, what are some practical strategies or tips for both customers and staff to minimize these communication breakdowns? Are there technologies or approaches that can genuinely help bridge the gap?
Definitely. From the customer side, clarity is king. Speak slowly and clearly. Don't be afraid to repeat your order, especially complex ones. If you have an allergy, state it prominently and perhaps even ask for confirmation that it's been noted. Using specific terms rather than vague ones helps a lot. For staff, actively listening and repeating the order back to the customer is incredibly effective. This readback confirms understanding and catches errors before they reach the kitchen or bar. Technology, like digital ordering kiosks or apps, can also play a huge role. They reduce the potential for mishearing, provide clear visual menus, and often have built-in allergy alerts. Pictures on menus can be incredibly helpful too, especially for international visitors. It's about creating multiple layers of confirmation and reducing ambiguity. And honestly, a bit of patience and empathy from both sides goes a long, long way. We're all human after all.
Patience and empathy, powerful tools in any interaction, certainly true for ordering. It's clear that what seems like a simple transaction is actually a nuanced interplay of language, culture, and individual needs. From the specific lingo of coffee to the critical importance of dietary requirements in meals, effective communication is truly the secret ingredient. Thank you for shedding such insightful light on this everyday challenge. It's been a truly illuminating discussion, making us all perhaps a little more mindful next time we step up to order. And that's all for today's Focus On. Join us next time for another deep dive into the fascinating world around us. Welcome back to Language Unlocked, your weekly dive into the fascinating world of language learning. Today, we're tackling a topic that resonates with so many of us, the initial hurdles and triumphs of learning a new language, especially English. We often hear about advanced learners, but what about those crucial early days? My co-speaker is here with me, and I'm really keen to explore what it's truly like from the very beginning. So let's just jump right in. What would you say was the absolute toughest part when you first started out with English?
Oh, that's a great question to kick things off. The toughest part, without a doubt, was the sheer overwhelming feeling of not understanding anything. I mean, you'd hear people speak and it was just a wall of sound, like a continuous stream of noise, not distinct words. And then the panic would set in. Even basic greetings felt like a monumental task. I remember trying to say, "How are you?" and stumbling over how and are because the h sound and the r were so different from my native language. It wasn't just about vocabulary. It was literally about making my mouth form sounds it wasn't used to. The frustration was real, and honestly, sometimes it felt like I'd never break through that initial barrier.
That's so relatable. That wall of sound phenomenon, it's almost like your brain is trying to decipher code. How long would you say it took before you started to hear individual words or even small phrases instead of just that continuous stream?
It felt like an eternity, honestly, but probably a few months of consistent exposure and effort. What really helped was starting with really simple, repetitive content, like children's cartoons, believe it or not. The exaggerated pronunciation, the slow pace, the visual cues, it was a lifeline. I'd watch the same episode over and over, first with subtitles in my language, then English subtitles, and then finally without any. It was a slow process, but suddenly a few words would pop out, then short sentences. It felt like tiny victories, like finding little pieces of a puzzle. And the joy when you finally understood a simple joke or a command was immense. It was a real turning point, moving from passive listening to active comprehension, even if it was just snippets.
That's brilliant advice. Using children's cartoons, it makes sense as they're designed for foundational understanding. Beyond just listening, what about speaking? I imagine that's another massive hurdle. Was there a specific moment or method that helped you gain the confidence to actually open your mouth and try to converse?
Speaking? Oh boy, that was a whole other beast. The fear of making mistakes, sounding silly, or being misunderstood was paralyzing. For a long time, I'd just nod and smile, pretending to understand more than I did. But eventually, I realized I wasn't going to improve if I didn't push past that. My breakthrough came when I found a language exchange partner online. It was a low-pressure environment, just us talking via video call. We'd switch between English and my native language. The key was that they were also learning my language, so they understood the struggle. They weren't judging, they were empathizing. And honestly, just saying a simple sentence, even if it was grammatically incorrect, and having them understand me, that was monumental. It built up my confidence little by little. I learned that communication was more important than perfection.
That's a powerful point. Communication over perfection. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, especially when you're still grappling with the basics. So, beyond the speaking and listening, what about the intricacies? Things like slang, idioms, or even just the nuances of English pronunciation, which can be notoriously tricky. How did you navigate those complexities in the early stages?
Oh, the nuances. They're still a journey, honestly. In the beginning, slang and idioms were just completely baffling. You'd hear a phrase like break a leg and wonder why someone was wishing injury upon an actor. It just didn't compute literally. For those, I mostly relied on context and then, honestly, just asking. If I was with someone who spoke English well, I'd politely ask, what does that mean? Most people were incredibly patient and happy to explain. For pronunciation, that was another battle. The TH sound, for instance, or the difference between sheet and shit, which can lead to some very embarrassing moments, let me tell you. I used online pronunciation guides and just recorded myself speaking, then listened back to compare. It felt a bit silly at first, but it really helped me pinpoint where my mouth and tongue needed to be. It's a lot about muscle memory, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like training a new muscle. And those embarrassing moments, while mortifying at the time, often become great learning experiences, right? Looking back, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is literally just starting their English learning journey today? Someone who feels that overwhelming sense of being at square one?
One piece of advice. I'd say embrace imperfection and celebrate every tiny victory. Don't wait until you're fluent to start using the language. Use it from day one, even if it's just saying hello or thank you. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are your best teachers. Seriously, I learned so much more from mispronouncing a word or using the wrong tense than I ever did from just memorizing grammar rules. Also, find something you genuinely enjoy in English, whether it's a TV show, music, or a simple blog. If you make it enjoyable, you're much more likely to stick with it. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and consistency, even just 15 minutes a day, makes a huge difference over time.
Embrace imperfection, celebrate small wins, and make it enjoyable. Those are incredibly powerful takeaways. It really underscores that learning English isn't just about textbooks. It's about courage, persistence, and finding joy in the process. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights. It's been truly enlightening and, I think, very encouraging for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of learning English. Your story really illustrates that it's okay to start small and stumble along the way as long as you keep moving forward. We've certainly learned a lot today, and I hope our listeners feel more inspired and less intimidated.
My pleasure. It's been a real treat talking about it. And yes, absolutely. Just keep going. Every word, every sentence, every conversation builds on the last. You've got this.
Fantastic. And that wraps up another episode of Language Unlocked. Join us next week for more deep dives into the world of communication. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep speaking. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today we're diving into a topic that so many of you have asked about. It's that age-old question, or rather that modern challenge. How do you master English, really get fluent, when you're not actually living in an English-speaking country? We often hear people say, oh, you just need to move to the US or the UK or Canada. But what if that's simply not an option? What if your dream of fluency feels out of reach because you can't pack up your bags and cross an ocean? Well, our guest today is here to tell us that not only is it possible, but there are incredibly effective ways to do it. You don't need a passport to unlock fluency, you just need a strategy. So let's jump right in. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here to share your insights with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to talk about this because, it's a misconception I hear all the time. People feel defeated before they even start because they believe that geographical proximity is the only pathway to proficiency. And honestly, it just isn't true anymore, especially with how connected we are today. Think about it. A native English speaker living in, say, Argentina has far more access to English content, English speakers, and English learning tools than someone just 2 decades ago. The world has genuinely shrunk in that sense. What we need to shift isn't our location, but our mindset and our approach to learning.
That's such a powerful point about the mindset. So let's get practical. For someone sitting at home, maybe in, I don't know, Tokyo or Berlin, feeling like they're missing out on that immersion experience, what's the first step they should take to create their own English-speaking bubble, so to speak, right where they are?
Absolutely. The first and arguably most crucial step is to actively integrate English into your daily life in as many ways as possible. It's about creating what I call conscious immersion. Don't just passively consume, engage actively. For instance, start by changing the language settings on your phone, your computer, your social media to English. It's a small change, but suddenly you're reading common phrases, interacting with apps, and even thinking about simple tasks in English. Then move to media. Beyond just watching English movies with subtitles, try watching them with English subtitles or even no subtitles if you're feeling brave. Listen to podcasts like this one, not just for the content, but for the rhythm, the intonation, the natural flow of conversation. Find music with English lyrics that you genuinely enjoy, and then look up those lyrics, sing along, understand the meaning. This isn't just entertainment, it's active listening and vocabulary acquisition happening simultaneously. It's about making English your background noise and then slowly bringing it to the foreground.
I love that conscious immersion. It makes so much sense. It's not just about exposure, but intentional exposure. But what about the really tough part for many people, speaking? How do you practice speaking English when you don't have native speakers around you daily to chat with?
This is where technology truly shines. The biggest myth is that you need to be physically present. We have incredible resources now. Look for online language exchange partners. There are countless apps and websites specifically designed to connect language learners. You can find someone who wants to learn your native language, and you teach them for 30 minutes, and then they teach you English for 30 minutes. It's a win-win. Another fantastic option, if your budget allows, is online tutors. Even an hour a week with a dedicated professional English teacher can provide invaluable structured practice, personalized feedback on your grammar, pronunciation, and fluency, and build your confidence significantly. And don't underestimate self-talk. Seriously, narrate your day in English. Describe what you're doing, what you see, what you're thinking. I'm making coffee now. The water is boiling. I need to add milk. It might sound a little silly at first, but it forces your brain to retrieve vocabulary and construct sentences in real time. It trains your mouth and brain to work together in English.
Self-talk, that's brilliant and completely free. It really highlights that you don't need a formal classroom setting to practice. What about when people get stuck on grammar or feel their vocabulary isn't growing fast enough? Any specific tips there?
Definitely. For vocabulary, try to learn words in context, not just isolated lists. When you're watching a show or reading an article and you encounter a new word, don't just look it up and forget it. Write it down in a notebook or a flashcard app, write the full sentence it was used in, and then try to use that word yourself in a sentence within 24 hours. The more you use a new word, the more likely it is to stick. For grammar, there are fantastic online resources, YouTube channels that break down complex grammar rules into simple, digestible lessons. Websites offer exercises. It's about understanding the why behind the rules, not just memorizing them. And honestly, reading helps immensely with both. Start with graded readers, then move to books you've already read in your native language so you understand the plot and can focus on the English. Then branch out into English language news articles, blogs, anything that genuinely interests you. The key is consistency. 5 minutes every day is infinitely better than an hour once a week. It compounds over time.
Consistency. That's the magic word for so many things, isn't it? Before we wrap up, what's one final piece of advice or encouragement you'd give to someone who feels a bit overwhelmed by this journey? Someone who really wants to learn English fast without being in an English-speaking country.
My biggest piece of advice is to embrace mistakes. They are not failures, they are stepping stones. Everyone, every single person who has learned a second language has made countless mistakes. It's a natural and absolutely essential part of the learning process. Don't be afraid to speak, even if you stammer or use the wrong tense. The goal isn't perfection from day one, it's communication. Also, find your why. Why do you want to learn English? Is it for travel, for work, for a specific hobby, to understand your favorite movies without subtitles? Hold on to that motivation, because on the days when it feels hard, that why will be your fuel. And remember, you have the world at your fingertips, literally. Your location doesn't define your potential for fluency. Your dedication and your strategic effort do.
That's incredibly inspiring and so true. Mistakes are just proof you're trying, right? Thank you so much for sharing such practical, actionable, and truly encouraging advice. It really shows that with the right approach and a dedicated mindset, anyone, anywhere can achieve English fluency. To all our listeners, don't let geographical barriers limit your dreams. Start your conscious immersion today. Thank you for joining us.